Welcome to the You Are a Force podcast channel, your go-to space for real stories, fearless dreams, and unstoppable women rewriting the rules. And the force behind this podcast. Here is your host, Binoli Botadara.
Hi everyone, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whichever part of the world you're in. Welcome to You Are a Force, the podcast where we speak to women who just don't move through the world, but they raise its frequency. Today's guest is a living, breathing proof that presence is power, breath is teacher, and true alignment has less to do with your spine, but more to do with your soul's compass. She is a co-founder of ISHTA Yoga, where ancient wisdom meets modern science. She teaches global students for the inner stillness. Alongside her husband, Master Finger, she has actually done a lot of trainings, retreats, and workshops across perhaps all the continents. She has also teamed up with none other than Dr. Deepak Chopra on multiple projects, but she has co-authored a book called Living the Light, which is Amazon's top 10 bestsellers on yoga books. And she has done many, many more things, and I can't even wait to introduce and have a talk to somebody who is so soothing, calming already with her energy. And she still makes me feel that, we're just two humans sitting cross-legged and sharing just the breath and truth. So it's my honor to welcome none other than wise, grounded, and spiritually fluent Sarah Platt-Finger. Sarah, thank you so much for being on Your Force.
Thank you so much for having me and for that beautiful introduction. I'm really honored to have this time with you.
It's amazing. And I definitely mean when I say this, that their aura is so powerful, even in the Zoom, recording as well. I can feel it because I do believe a lot in energy and vibrations. And it is so soothing. So how do you do this?
I really think, our inner space is something that we have a responsibility for all of the things that, we want to be able to control in the world. The only thing we really have any agency over is our inner space. So it has really been in these last, I think, 25 years of my life, kind of a mission to cultivate that inner space, to cultivate a space that is safe and peaceful and welcoming. I mean, even if it isn't peaceful, it's a space that I feel at home in, So that's a lot of what my asana pranayama meditation practice is about. And also, cultivating relationships that support me and that fortify me. That all helps my inner space.
That's amazing. I love that. I'm going to be a sponge and I'm going to try and absorb everything I can during this conversation. And I'm so excited. So I want to go back to the memory lane, and everyone knows this calm, composed, grounded force you are. But I want to start when you were growing up, your passion was gymnastic. And from there you learned dancing and theater. So what really flipped at the age of 16 maybe, and how growing up in the US you got in touch with yoga? So was it like a moment or a sensation, and how was it different to do yoga on a mat than just performing or on the stage? So if you can get us back to the memory lane.
Yeah. Well, for me, growing up, I realize now in retrospect that gymnastics was my yoga. It was an opportunity. I was a very sensitive child. I had strong, intense feelings. I had all the colors in the crayon box in terms of the spectrum of feeling and emotions. And I always felt a little bit weird about that because it didn't necessarily match with my home life. I had a very wonderful family, but I always felt like I was unusual for the intensity that I felt. And so gymnastics was an opportunity for me to really channel and harness some of those feelings, which are, as we know, really energy. You know, it was a way for me to channel my energy. And whether it was going upside down or focusing on a 4-inch wide beam or swinging around on bars, it changed my consciousness. And in many ways, it helped me to bring my attention to one thing at one time, you know, to pull my senses inward. When you're walking on a balance beam, you cannot be distracted by what's happening around you.
Yeah.
And that experience of, in Sanskrit, it's called pratyahara, right? Sense withdrawal. I really think it was my first form of meditation, even though I didn't know it as
What it
that
was.
at the time. Yeah. But the thing about gymnastics, and then as it became dance, was really more dance was a form of a creative outlet for me, a creative expression, being able to kind of move through space with a little more liberty. I did a lot of choreography as well when I was in college. So that was much more of a liberating experience for me, whereas gymnastics was always very controlled and really about, you know, what is the score? How good
Yeah.
was it? How perfect was it? So you can become very conditioned by that. So that by the time I came to yoga, to this practice of which did have some overlap in terms of going upside down, holding a pose, you know, creating a shape with
Yeah.
your body.
Yeah.
But the end result was not what it looked like or what everybody else expected of it. The end result was what was here inside of me. And that's what lingered. And that's what I, again, learned to cultivate over time.
And while you were just saying, it just made me think that, you know, when you are in a gymnastic pose, you constantly trying to move into the other one, while in
Mm.
yoga, it's the other way, right? You basically get into a
Mm.
pose and you try and be and remain in that pose. So I think that must have been very different because I have done yoga since I was a child and I was insanely flexible because I was also a dancer, so I could resonate. But I did not pursue yoga the way I should have. And after I started stalking you, you inspired me to go back. Go back because I'm like, oh, what have I done, you know? And earlier I could do all sorts of crazy asanas, which we think, and now I can't do half of it, you
Mm.
know?
Mhm.
So I think I've become super stiff, but I'm going to go back. So thank you for inspiring. But speaking of dance, you spent 3 years in Taiwan.
Mm.
And you know, you basically, that's not the yoga capital of the world. Yoga
No.
originates from India. And, but, so how was it like your first language? Because it must be on your in your bones. So how did you learn those early, you know, asanas of yoga, and how did you
Mm.
actually learn, you know, the whole concept of yoga? Because
Yeah.
how did you get in touch?
Mm. Yeah, well, I did get in touch originally very first time was in college. I had a professor who actually was from Taiwan, but he knew yoga and pranayam and brought that into a course that I was doing, which was called Chinese Meditative Arts. And that was the first experience I had of meditation, of Eastern sciences and studies, which really just changed my life. And it caused me to want to go to Taiwan after I studied. I minored in Asian studies. I graduated college. I wanted to go as far away from my hometown, which was in Long Island, New York, as possible. And so, yeah, I went there. I felt very drawn to this culture, this different way of life. And I did take some yoga classes from a teacher who also taught Qigong, and Tai Chi was very much a part of the culture there.
Yeah.
And so this teacher kind of wove through both yoga, asana, and Tai Chi and Qigong. So that was really interesting for me. And because I was probably like you, I was supple, I was flexible.
Yeah.
And she thought that I had a gift in doing it. So she would have me come in front of the group and in Mandarin speak
Oh,
some of the poses and the exercises, which really just kind of counting. 1、2、3、4. So that was, but it opened up something for me that was like, and this is really, I think, how I've been guided in my life by this sort of inner trust or certainty that was like, you need to go back to the US and get your yoga certification. This was 2003. It was 22 years ago. There were not a lot of teacher training, capitals around the country, but I
absolutely.
felt very strongly pulled. So after 3 years, I came back and I looked around, and yeah, the kind of the rest is history, but it was just a very strong calling that I had.
That's amazing. I love that. And you actually said something that you wanted to become a teacher. And coming from India, I mean I live in London now, but coming from India, it was a part of our culture and DNA to actually everyone talks about yoga. I don't know if everyone does it correctly, but everyone has
Mhm.
a sort of understanding of yoga and the culture. But and therefore, the reason I say this, that almost everyone thinks that they are teachers. So, and there are millions of people who are practicing yoga, and there are thousands who are teaching, or hundreds of thousands maybe. So, I really want to understand that someone who who is so popular, what is that one thing which sets you apart from all other uh, people who are practicing yoga or teaching?
Mhm.
And because your presence, that's allowed you to work with the CEOs and millions of leaders and celebrities. So I really want to understand that what is that one thing you have, or maybe a few more things you have which others don't in terms of when they teach yoga.
I think that, and I think that everybody that teaches yoga or practices yoga, just to like take a moment also to like honor the yogis from India who have passed this practice over. And I hold it in such reverence. And those teachers, who have passed it down in such reverence, we really need to honor them and recognize the origins of this practice.
Yeah.
Um, that being said, I think that sometimes it can be misconstrued as something that you are, quote, good or bad at.
Mm,
And that's not how I see it.
mm,
I see the practice as an opportunity for us to get in touch with something that is not bounded by form or shape,
mm.
or identity. Even though we, in an asana, right, we're using the body, right, to
Right.
create a shape, but that shape is evoking a state of consciousness. And what it's doing is it's harnessing the different aspects of our being, our mind, our breath, our body, our presence to presence ourselves in this moment. So that, and also to generate the strength in our body, the mobility, eventually the sustainability to be able to sit in an extended period of time
Yeah.
and be with yourself. For me, if the practice doesn't touch on that subtle, essential nature of your being, then I don't feel like I've done my job, you
Mm,
know? And so I think many people who are maybe in positions of power or leadership or have pressures to show up in this space of right or wrong, good or bad, you nailed it, you crushed it, you failed, to free yourself. And that's what yoga was for me. It did liberate me from the confines of judgment, which
yeah.
was such a practice in the gymnastics tradition. For people to feel like they're not being judged, they can't get it wrong. This is not us getting somewhere else. This
Mm.
is us returning
Coming
back
back to
home.
ourselves. Yes.
Yeah, turning back. So, yeah, I think that that might be just a slightly different approach that I've
Perhaps.
learned. Yeah.
Perhaps, and I think you really need to connect also with your teacher because the yoga which I learned in India and which I was doing, and when I came to London, when I started looking for yoga, there are like variations of yogas which I had no clue about. And my
Mm.
favorite is yin and yang, which is actually a mixture of
Hmm.
Chinese technique and the yoga. And like you said, I there's a teacher who I go to, and I attended a lot of other people's classes. I'm not saying the others were not good, but the way I connected with her, oh,
Mm.
she is incredible. And it just, you find the stillness, you remain in that, asana for like more than 3 minutes or something. And it hurts the next day, your body. But that time you're doing it and you're like in that zone and it's so soothing and calming. So it's something else. And it's a perception that, you need to really do something crazy to actually
Yeah.
feel into your body. But that's not the case. I think that I learned with yin and yang.
Totally. And the yin practice is so powerful because it does, invite you to just rest and be in a shape and in a sensation. And we often have that impulse to want to change the sensation, to make it something else, to distract ourselves or
Yeah.
run away and to kind of rest and yield in that. I think it's very potent. It's very powerful.
It is amazing. And I want to know that you have been a personal yoga teacher to Dr. Deepak Chopra. So,
Mhm.
how did that happen? That's something which is so, so, so amazing because he is practicing, living, breathing person who advocates about well-being and yoga. So, to teach him is a big, honor. But also, I want to understand that was it like a hallway conversation or something the universe conspired for you guys to come together? How did that happen?
Yeah, I think it was a bit of the second. I we had a studio when I lived in New York City. We still do have a studio, but it's in a slightly different location. Um, and about 6 years after we opened, I got an email from Deepak's assistant that he was looking for private yoga and would I be willing to teach him. He had had some mutual friends that were students of ours that would come to the studio. So I think people that he had worked with in New York City were like, oh, you should go check out ISHTA Yoga.
Right.
And so but there was such a synchronicity because I had been reading the spontaneous fulfillment of desire, which was really a lot about like quantum leaps and how, things can just manifest. And I had just the week prior been reading it to my husband and saying, look, Deepak Chopra is teaching everything we teach, but he uses the science to substantiate it. And we have the practice and the rituals because it's a tantric based practice. And so it did feel very, I almost didn't believe it at first when I saw the email. I was like, no, this is a scam. But sure enough, no, he moved 3 doors down from where our studio
Really?
was. And
Wow.
so, yeah, for 7, 8 years, we would meet early in the morning, before I would take my daughter to school. I was living in Brooklyn at the time. I would take the train into where the studio was, have our session. We do a little Instagram post. And then I would take the train back, take my daughter to school. Then I'd train back in for
Wow.
my day at the studio. And I woke up, at like 4:30 to do my practice first because that's a non-negotiable for me. So it was a very kind of austere schedule, but at the same time, it brought me so much light and it brought me so much joy, but yes, illumination, working with him. um yes, you see the humanity, you see the realness of a person when you work with them one on one and you're working with their breath and you're working with their body and whatever limitations might come with that. But his presence is very strong. He has a very strong energy field
Really?
that after working with him, I could feel that linger, like,
Really?
yes, very
Wow.
much so. Yeah, it's very, very powerful.
That's amazing. That's
Yeah.
amazing because it doesn't happen with everybody. Everybody
No.
doesn't have that energy.
Correct.
Yes, that's incredible. That's amazing to learn. But
Yeah.
speaking of Deepak, he has written 90 plus books, which is too good. And
Yeah.
when you collaborated with him, it was your first book. So
Yeah.
the Living the Light. So,
Yeah.
I mean, no pressure, but
Right.
when you are, co-authoring with somebody who is like a name to reckon with in the field, how was it to actually, collaborate with him when you have to hold your own space and your own voice, but also, collaborating with somebody who has his own mind and views? And then how do you, coincide together to actually create the depth of your knowledge and his expertise of,
Mm.
so how did you do that?
Yeah. Well, he was very generous about this book. He wanted to write a book on yoga. I think he had been practicing so diligently for so many years and really refined his pose. His body went through a huge transformation. And I think he wanted to share that at his age. He was maybe 75 or 6 at the time writing this book and more vital than ever. And so he really wanted to reinterpret the Yoga Sutras, and he asked me to write about the asana and to bring in, the kriyas and the chakras and the certain mudras and the sort of more subtle aspects of the practice that are part of my teachings. And so it worked really well because he had his section and I had my section, and he really just gave me free rein. He was kind of like, you just do your thing, right? But he did want these more subtle aspects of it into the book. So yeah, it didn't feel in any way a strain, or I didn't feel a certain level of like, I have to
Inspiration.
kind of, yeah, keep up with his voice. It was really open for me to. And then, of course, everything gets cohesive by the end, where there's just kind of a through line of the book that you can feel from start to finish. But yeah, it was a really wonderful experience. I feel extremely blessed. And I know there's um, so many yoga teachers in the world that have so much to say. And I feel very humbled and grateful that I had the opportunity to share my teachings and my interpretation of the practice.
I love that. And I haven't read the book, but it's now on my to-do list. But
Yeah.
every book starts with the question which you're trying to answer, and there is always a why. So, what was that burning question which you wanted to actually attain, and you wanted people to know about that, which is not available in most other yoga books? So, and if you can just give us one takeaway, in this conversation for people who have not read the book, why they should go and read it.
Hmm. I mean, I think quite simply, it's called Living in the Light Yoga for Self-Realization. So the why or the what do you get from this is, what is the path back to the self? How do we return back to that source of our being that's unchanging and that's always there and that never dies? And it really is this eightfold path of Ashtanga yoga, not like the established brand of Ashtanga yoga, but the 8 limbs of yoga,
Okay.
which are the direct kind of, if you could have a manual, like, how do I establish harmony, peace, well-being, and ultimately a transcendent space? It is through that. And then with my portion of it with the asanas, really just understanding how every shape, every asana has a superpower. It has like almost like a medicinal quality. What is the medicinal quality of this that's going to stay with you? So yeah, it's really just about finding your way back to the self with a capital S.
And I did not know that every asana has works differently, because I really thought that ultimately all asanas would have an impact on your nervous system and on your nerves. but
Yes.
would it do different in terms of the like you said, that the medicine effects?
Hmm.
How does that happen? Just because it's concentrated into some part of the body, or there's any other reason?
Yeah, it's sometimes a multitude of things. There could be obviously different parts of the body are strengthened more in some poses than in others. Like if you're doing a standing pose where you're holding yourself on one leg, say, there are, quote unquote, medicinal properties. It certainly helps with flat feet. It will lift your inner arches. It will strengthen your ankles. It will help your balance, right? Which has so many benefits to, our brain. It helps with mental focus and concentration, and resiliency. So just thinking about that, like standing on one leg versus laying on your back. Lay on your back, flat on the mat, like with your legs out and your palm. That's Shavasana, right? It's the end pose that we do in that's a completely different set of benefits. It's very calming. It's very rejuvenating. You're returning back to the rest and digest. You're releasing the muscles, right? And slowing down the mind and the breath. So, yeah, there are many different benefits depending on the pose and the shape that you're creating, what kinds of muscles and joints are being recruited for it. And
Okay.
that's not to speak even of the subtle body, right? There's marma points in the body, which are subtle points, almost like acupuncture, that get activated with different poses. There's lines of energy, nadis, there's chakras, the chakra system. So all of that is also activated.
Oh, wow. Okay. Okay. Now, I was just, when you were saying, I was just trying to think and imagine, how you sometimes do not understand which part of the body is actually talking to you and speaking back to
Yes.
you. But one should actually start listening that, where it's getting impacted and affected. But I want to know that, you started ISHTA Yoga in 2008 with your husband. And
Mhm.
it's ISHTA stands for Integrated Science of Hatha, Tantra, and Ayurveda. And
Mm.
it sounds ancient and advanced, but for
Mhm.
somebody who doesn't know what ISHTA actually is, can you help us understand and how it would benefit somebody to actually practice that for?
Yeah, thanks for bringing that up. And yes, it sounds very esoteric and it's a mouthful. It's actually a twofold meaning, and you just described the acronym, the Integrated Science of Hatha, Tantra, and Ayurveda, which are the three sister sciences of yoga, which we can get into. But the second meaning of Ishta comes from a Yoga Sutra, Svadhyaya Ishta Devata Samprayogaha. And that means an Ishta Devata is like your unique deity or
Yes.
archetype that resonates with you. And a translation I came across, which I think really sums up the practice of Ishta, is Svadhyaya is the self-study. When you study yourself, you discover the divine. You discover that which is infinite and unbounded. We often think we have to go outside of ourselves to get there, to access it. And part of what makes Ishta unique is that it is a highly individualized practice. I think that's one of the things that really appealed to Deepak is I could create a sequence for him that was unique to his body, his constitution, his set of his lifestyle, and really work within his sort of boundaries, his gifts and his limitations to create something that left him with a sense of spaciousness and openness. And that is really, I think, what makes the Ishta practice unique.
That's incredible. And because it's very, very unique when you brought that up, because most of the people, when they talk of yoga, think of yoga, they think that it's all about asanas and touching your toes and everything. But that's not how yoga started. Yoga started 5,000 years back, and it didn't even start with poses. It was more about, movement and stillness and self-realization. And you are actually bringing that at the core of your teaching. And your signature class is Sweat and Samadhi. So,
Mm-hmm.
which is actually in today's time when we have addiction to social media, scrolling, scheduling, having FOMO of not being at most places. So, what does the stillness mean to you? And how does stillness feels like power when you are in that zone, and how important it is that it doesn't feel like a punishment, but it's something magical to
Mm-hmm.
you and your body?
Yeah. And stillness is something that when you're not used to practicing it, can feel very uncomfortable. I always add moments of stillness in my classes, where we just pause and we stand in Tadasana and mountain pose, which is basically standing with your feet parallel and your arms alongside your body and your spine tall, right? And it's basically standing in the anatomical position, but it's kind of standing in stillness, in presence, in your experience, whatever that experience is. Um, and, Deepak uses this phrase, SIFT, sensation, images, feelings, and thoughts. And these are all essentially fluctuations of the mind or consciousness. And when we're able to stand or rest in stillness, we can allow those fluctuations to arise, but we can also let them subside so that we don't practice engaging in them, which is really what the social media does. It's like we have a moment of pause and we're like, back to the vrittis, back to the fluctuations, back to the stimulation, which keeps our mind very busy, but it keeps us from getting in touch with our true nature, which is not the thoughts, it's not the mind, it's not the chatter, it's not the, even the pose, it's not the yoga pose, right? It's like everything in between. It's those pauses in between. And that's what we need to learn to tap into. And of course, meditation is the pathway there. That's why meditation for me is not separate from yoga. It is yoga, right? It is the experience of yoga is sitting and being in union. That's what yoga means. Union, yuj, to yoke, union with mind, body, spirit, and all the disparate aspects of yourself to feel, like the sky, right? And not the weather. So I love that quote by Anais Nin. No, sorry, it's not. It's Pema Chodron. And
Okay.
she says, "You are the sky. The rest, it's just the weather."
Oh, I love
Yeah,
that. And
yeah,
it's so deep. If you actually go to
really.
it, and it's so layered as well. Ah, so weather is everything around,
Yes.
and yeah, okay. And you said something very interesting about yoga and meditation, according to your similar, and therefore perhaps you have helped a lot of survivors of
Mm,
ADHD, and people who have gone through traumas through exhale to inhale.
mm.
So any experiences you would like to share which look like a miracle, and maybe people can do something very basic to actually, uh, who are suffering from traumas or ADHDs?
Well, sometimes for people who have been through trauma or are recovering from some kind of traumatic event, it's often just kind of like coming back to your body and feeling that you are in your body and not in another time or space, which can often happen when we're to trauma survivors, right? They kind of like their body will replay an experience when you have a trigger or something that comes up that reminded you of a traumatic event, even though it's not the same kind of extent of trauma that you're
Right.
experiencing in that moment. So then it's about kind of training yourself to be with your body and those experiences, but it has to be in a safe way. And so I think what is really important, and I think this is important for everybody. I mean, we've all had some level of trauma, whether it's a big T or little t trauma, but just this concept of choice, that you get to decide how you want to, like, how long you want to hold the pose, the variation of it that suits you and your body. I will never force somebody to hold a pose if they're not ready to, but
Mm,
I will help them to find their strength and their resiliency in it and in a safe way. Like, can you stay here for another moment or two? Can you breathe through?
mm,
If you feel like it's too much, you can always come out of it.
right.
And that gives people, especially trauma survivors, the power to choose, right? How and what they want to do with their body. Because if they have been, and exhale to inhale, specifically traumas, survivors of sexual assault and domestic violence, so people who have been through, that particular type of trauma where they didn't have a choice in what happened to their bodies. And so it's kind of reclaiming that power. And that can feel like a miracle, even if it's like, oh, I can hold warrior two for two more breaths and be okay and ride through this feeling that I'm having. Seems very simple, but it
Yeah,
can
it
be very
does.
profound.
No, I'm sure it's very profound because it can have an impact which is long lasting, and then
Yeah.
ultimately you're trying to actually erase that with very, very simple yet very profound way of, dealing. But also, if any hack or any go-to maybe practice which is simple, but when you feel knackered or drained out, especially in today's day and age, can you advise anything which we can do to sort of
Mhm.
align our energies?
Definitely. So two things. One thing I would say is this very simple hand gesture, which is great to reestablish balance, right, in right and left brain hemisphere, but like more specifically is to bring focus and attention to the mind. If you're feeling fatigued, if you're like you need to do some work, but you're feeling like scattered or brain fog or like just unable to look at the page or the task at hand, you
Focus.
take your fingertips and your thumb tips to touch and you separate the palms of your hands. So it's almost like you have a little globe or ball in between your hands and the thumb tips and fingertips are touching, and you just close your eyes and you bring your attention in between your eyebrows and a little bit above. And you might right away just be able to feel that you open up, and that connection energetically is the third eye point. So it's about inside intuition, inner vision, but it's also about focus and concentration, right? So and it's quite, did you feel that?
I did. I did. I
Yeah.
did. I did not stay for longer because I didn't know whether you opened your
Yeah.
eyes or
No.
not, so I came back. But I did, and it was very bright light when I
Mm.
closed my eyes, and I could, when you were saying about third eye, I could actually visualize, and
Hmm.
yeah, I could focus that, and I could feel that a sense of calmness. I
Yeah,
actually got it. Thank you for sharing that. It's
of
amazing.
course.
And you have taught like CEOs and celebrities and leaders and millions of other people. Did you find any specific or common thread in terms of block of energy, or there are some blockages uh, in the most successful people, and how did you help them move on or move through with it?
I would say, and I think that Deepak is an exception to this because he's extremely dedicated and disciplined.
Yeah.
But I think commitment can be hard for people who are, powerful CEOs or leaders who have a lot of responsibility. It can be very easy to say, okay, I've got this meeting or I've got this or I'm traveling and I'll just, cancel my yoga for the week. And then over time, you kind of forget about it.
Yeah, yeah,
And so it's really important to keep that commitment, to keep
right.
it on your calendar, just as a meeting is, right, with your staff or your team, because it's just that important. And so I try to tell them to, find a time that they can commit to every week, that it doesn't change week by week, and that's, set in their calendar.
Okay. And you have taught yoga also across the world in Japan, Sweden, Germany, I mean, across the globe, basically.
Mm-hmm.
How do you honor the ancient yogic roots also while translating them across the cultures? Because it's not really simple and easy to actually, connect with the audience from different backgrounds. So, how do you do that? And is there any common sort of blind spot which people are trying to address apart from just the mental health issues across the globe? If you have sort of come across a trend that almost everyone is sort of driving towards solving that problem.
Yeah, great question. I mean, in terms of teaching across multiple countries and cultures, what is I have found so fascinating is that it just reminds you that even though we have different languages, different cultures, different diet backgrounds, whatever, the practice of yoga is universal. It's about the human nervous system, which we all share. And so these practices like that mudra I just showed you, we could show that to anybody in the world and they would have a similar response,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so it's all about our shared wiring, everything that is about us that is universal as human beings. That is what this practice is for. It's for like the human condition, the parts of being human that create suffering, that create um, limiting beliefs, and how to break through from that. And that's why it's withstood the test of time, 5,000 years or possibly more.
Yeah.
So that has always been amazing for me to teach, something like a pranayama, like alternate nostril breathing or a visualization technique, and watch humans from anywhere in the world have a similar response, right? So I feel that it's a very universal language, and Sanskrit, of course, being an ancient language, kind of transcends linguistic differences because it's a vibrational language too. So when you can use that and, speak to, I think it just illuminates different modes of awareness for people when they hear Sanskrit, and we can talk in that way because nobody really uses it these days as a conversation, right?
No. I learned that, which I
Did
have
you?
never used it. Uh,
Um,
I scored really well. I'm not the best in languages, but I
mm,
did really well. But, I was just thinking to my head that it's such a useless topic and subject to actually
mm,
learn. But now, since you're telling me, I mean, I'm just trying to think that almost all the um, every thing basically all the chants are in
yes,
Sanskrit, and therefore perhaps they have vibrations,
yes,
also which we feel, not just the words.
yes.
I think now since you were telling me, I was just thinking that yeah, I should not have just criticized Sanskrit so
Well,
much.
might not have been taught it in that way, right? It might have been a little bit more kind of scholarly. You have to memorize it and
Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
that's why I think it's so important for us to I mean, the essence of what the ancient seers and rishis shared. It's just fascinating how
I
in touch they
know.
were with
And
their
what
bodies, but also,
wisdom.
the cosmic realm. And it's just it kind of blows me away.
I know it's like unreal, how
Yeah.
they have actually understood that sort of world and science and energies and put it into the books like five,
Yeah.
seven, I don't know how many years ago. And we still not have actually understood, I think maybe 1% of it, what's written, to be very
Yes.
honest. And imagine how
Yeah.
powerful that could be if we can interpret everything, what they're trying to
Yes.
say.
And now with quantum science and neuroscience, they're realizing that that is a lot of that supports what ancient yogis were teaching, about like neuroplasticity or, even this concept of, Brahman, which is that infinite field of intelligence, is essentially the quantum realm, and how each chakra correlates to different glandular systems. It's really fascinating. And it's the kind of thing that you can't really poke a hole in. The more you study it, the more you see the brilliance of it. And because
Right.
it's not a belief system, right? It's really like understanding the
Yeah.
nature of the universe,
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And
which we are a part of.
yes. And speaking of quantum leap and visualization, again, I want to make the most of it for the viewers that how can someone do manifestation with visualization? Because I have started manifesting and visualizing, and this entire podcast was on my vision board for 5 years. It never worked out,
Mhm.
but I think stars were not aligned. I really think that. And then everything just fell in place. And so, how do I practice in my daily life the practice of visualization and the quantum leap, where you actually feel that you're already there and therefore
Mm.
get it back? So, if you can maybe
Mhm.
give us some tips and hacks to actually do that.
Well, interesting because your intention in Sanskrit is called sankalpa. It's an intention that resonates with your soul, like, or a vow that resonates with your soul. And I think when we think about a vision board or manifestation, it's not always about the thing we manifest, but the feeling we want to have. So I always like to, every year we do a little Sankalpa ritual. I do that with my husband. We do it with the school, the ISHTA school in New York City. And Deepak has done that with us a couple of times as well. And it's about coming up with a word. And there is a certain, again, process or ritualistic way that we get to that word. But even sometimes just getting quiet and listening for just kind of connecting to your heart, feel your heartbeat, and you can just simply ask the question, what do I want? What do I want? And this is from the Chopra school of thought, that asking that question, what do I want? Something will be revealed. And that's where you can listen for a word or an intention. And the word could be freedom. The
Mm,
word could be abundance.
yeah.
The word could be
Peace.
independence or
Peace.
peace, right?
Yeah.
It's one word. And sometimes it will come and you'll be very surprised. And again, that's why we have a specific practice that we unlock the unconscious and, use certain pranayama, powerful pranayama techniques to free ourselves up from that programming so that we are ready and open to
Mm,
hear the word. And
mm,
then we plant it into the different chakras from the midbrain all the way down to the
mm,
base of the spine. And then imagine a red mist of light expanding out from there. So that's the more, but for the listeners who maybe don't have access to all of those steps, just what do I want? Listen for the word, let the word come up, and then let that word be your guiding force so that every action, every choice, you say, what brings me peace or
mm.
what brings me freedom?
Freedom.
What is abundance in this situation?
Mm,
And
mm,
that you're making the choices that are supporting
mm,
that, the way that you want to feel. And I really do believe that there is a, organizing, infinite organizing power of the universe that will work out the details for you. So if there's something like something you want to create that's a little bit more materialistically based,
Yeah.
like that will happen too. But you have to have your clarity of how you want to feel and how is this action
Mm,
going to support that feeling. Because if you want to feel freedom
mm,
and you are choosing an action that is the opposite of freedom,
mm.
that's making you feel limited and shackled, it's not going to work,
No, no.
right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's about getting in touch with the feeling, and the word is the feeling. It's a vibration.
And you feel that word, or you write that word down
You
also?
write it down. You can write it down. You can visualize. So the more extended practice is you visualize the word on the screen of your mind. You say it at the midbrain, and then like a seed, you drop it down to your throat. You say it at your throat, which is your communication center. So you communicate this. You
Yeah.
move it down to your heart. You say the word at the heart. So you establish relationships that support it. You move it down to your navel, say the word at your navel so you have the will, the courage, the fire to move through it. Then you move down to your pelvis, say the word at the pelvis, that's the water center, so you feel joy and ease and fluidity. And then the last, of course, is the base, the root, where it take like a seed takes root, and that's your fertile soil. You say the word at the root so that you literally walk it, you embody it. And then you can imagine the word expanding out into the cells of your body. So each cell of your body is informed by that word, by that sankalpa, that intention.
Oh
Very
my
powerful.
God.
Yeah.
Very powerful, very powerful.
Yeah.
And while you were saying, the way you're explaining, I could actually visualize it, moving from top to the bottom.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, I'm gonna definitely practice and I'm gonna come back to you how I
Good.
feel.
Do please let
I
me know
will.
how it goes.
I will. And does that also mean quantum leaping, or quantum leaping is completely different?
Yes, a quantum leap is essentially getting from one to the other without any, it's like getting from point A to Q and skipping all the letters in between. So it's kind of a miraculous thing, but it is a natural phenomenon that particles are able to make these quantum leaps, and scientists don't really know how. And that would be, I would say, the support of that infinite organizing intelligence.
Mm,
In the Bhagavad Gita, which you're probably familiar with,
yeah.
Krishna says to Arjuna, you are not the doer. We are not doing the doing. We're not creating this, earth to rotate around the sun or revolve. We're not creating the stars to shine or the plants to grow. It's like we're not doing that. We're
No,
participating in this
absolutely.
process, the unfolding of consciousness. So the more we can really understand that, then the quantum leap makes so much sense.
I got literally chills in my entire body.
Yeah.
I want to just, I can do this. Maybe we do another podcast just to talk about
Sure.
your wisdom, because there's so much to learn from you. But I want to end this asking the last question, that if three rituals you would tell people, maybe what time of the day we can do to maybe sleep better, feel grounded, apart from what you just taught us, is there anything you want everybody to take away with? And then maybe simple ritual, maybe 5 minutes every single day, in the morning or evening or night or whenever we can.
Mhm. Well, one ritual which I love, and this is kind of, I mean, from an Ayurvedic perspective, which is the, sister science of yoga, the science of life and longevity, it's practice to like drink warm water in the morning. Warm water with lemon is meant to help the digestive system. And I live in South Florida. It's summer right now. It's really hot. And so, um, everybody drinks ice, iced tea, ice drinks, ice smoothies. And I think if we had a different understanding of our digestive system, that actually putting so much ice and cold is like closing the fire of our digestive, which is our power. It's our, you know, the power not just to digest our food, but digest the world, you know, and our feelings and our thoughts, and just to have this like strong engine running us that like can help us to break through limitations, etc. So if people could have sip some warm water in the morning, or, you know, instead of putting ice in their water, it's a really simple hack that I think it will change your mind. It will change your digestive process. It will help you, your skin, everything. So it's just one simple thing.
Sure.
Yeah, I do I do my yoga and breathing every morning. Just like I alternate the flow of air through both nostrils. But even just a simple, you know, practice of closing your eyes, getting settled, whether it's sitting on a chair or sitting on a cushion in the morning, just center yourself and take a few steady breaths. One hand to your heart, one hand to your belly. Feel your breath being breathed. Feel how you are being breathed. You're not breathing. It's happening for you. And also this practice of your hands touching your heart and your belly. It's like an intimate connection with yourself and your body. So really like beautiful way to establish a connection with and to yourself. And then I guess the third thing I would say, if you can avoid eating after, say, you know, 9 o'clock, even 7 o'clock from an Ayurvedic perspective, that's helpful for sleep. But I also think just in terms of, again, like throughout the day, because sometimes people won't do like the 5 minute thing, but you can remember at any time, like if you're sitting, to just feel what it feels like to sit up on your chair. You know, put your feet on the floor, feel your sit bones evenly rooted, rest your hands to your thighs, lengthen up through your spine, and just feel like a long, tall spine. Yeah, just do that, because this is our vitality, your spine and your breath. And if your spine is collapsed, it correlates to so many other conditions, you know, that can affect our health and well-being. And so just every once in a while, you're sitting in your chair, you're watching TV, you're having a conversation like we are, feel your feet on the floor, your sit bones on the chair, lengthen up tall through your spine, and just notice what that feels like so you don't get so comfortable in the passive sitting.
Okay, on that note, I'm gonna let you go, but I'm just gonna ask some rapid fire questions very
Okay.
quickly, whatever comes to your mind. Um, one book which changed your path besides yours.
The Yoga Sutras. The Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, for sure.
Okay, okay. Best advice you've ever received.
I think it would be, it's not what's coming at you, it's what's coming from you.
Wow,
Yeah.
wow. The world is within you, isn't it?
Yes.
Shouts to
Yeah.
you.
Yeah.
Uh, what would you tell your 20 years old self if you'll meet her today?
Everything is as it's meant to be. Everything is as it's meant to be. And trust in yourself. Trust in yourself.
Love that.
Yeah. And I would also, sorry, just say to trust in that inner knowing that was guiding me all the time. Yeah.
Be aware of it. Listen
Mm.
to it. Yes. I also read somewhere, I know it's a rapid fire, but I once I was going through, I don't know, maybe on a plane or something, and I read an article by Sadhguru or somebody, and
Hmm.
he basically said that, whenever you eat something, your body talks to you. So start listening to your body, and
Mm.
your
Yes.
choices will change. And I was suffering from acidity and gas, and to the level that I used to cry every day because I just could not digest.
Hmm.
And then when I started listening to my body, automatically my hand doesn't go to so many food
Yes.
choices, which I used to make, which I used to think that it's healthy, nice, yummy, whatever. But now, because I'm alert, I don't do it. I just don't touch it. And so coming back to your point of just listening to your inner body and self and mind, I think that's something very profound, which,
Very.
yes.
Yeah.
What success means to you? You've achieved so much.
Hmm. To me, success is freedom. It's really just a state of freedom, like free to make the choices I want, to invest in the things I want to invest in, to create the life that I want to create. Like freedom is success to me.
Wow. And your guilty pleasure outside the wellness world.
I mean, there's a few, but I definitely I'm a coffee drinker, so if you want to call that a guilty pleasure, I love my oat milk latte for sure. And I I love watching like mystery shows, thrillers, things where it's like you have to there's like plot twists. So I get really hung up in
Excited.
that. Yeah, excited. So like those kind of Netflix Harlan Coben kind of shows. I really like those. Those are definitely my guilty pleasure.
Love that. So, on that note, I'm going to let you go, but thank you so much for sharing your journey, sharing all the tips, and your soothing our senses, actually, literally. And thank you for reminding us that the true light doesn't overwhelm us, it illuminates us. And yoga is not about touching your toes, but it's also touching your
Mm.
inner self. And to everyone listening, take this as a gentle nudge. Take a pause, breathe, and reconnect, because this is not just a podcast, this is a self care retreat. It's a wellness in true form. So keep shining, stay grounded, and listen to your inner self and stay powerful. Until next time, remember you are a force. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you so
Thank you,
much.
Binoli. Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening to You Are a Force. Hit subscribe and join us next week for more powerful stories from women rewriting the rules. Until then, keep building, keep leading, and remember, you are a force.